It's me, Gaba, Ghoul, welcome. It's me, Gaba, Ghoul, welcome. It's me, Gaba, Ghoul, welcome. It's me, Gaba, Ghoul, welcome.
That's my opinion!
Happy 5 episodes. I don't know, when I was starting this, I thought this was going to be so much fun, and it is. And I'm so happy that I've been able to do this. This episode is all about passing the mic to incredible trans women and their voices. You know, I had this idea of questions that I wanted to ask trans women in my life. And y'all, trans women have been such a blessing in my life ever since I was little. And I just want to take some time and give them their flowers, honey. You know, the questions are hard because they do require a sense of vulnerability. And I'm very grateful of the participants who responded and sat down and returned those questions, and I get to share them with you, their answers. So I want to give you a little bit of background. When I was a wee little queer, I think I was 18, and I was getting into the local pubbery, the local gay bar. And I think it's because I knew some elder gays, and back in my day, which wasn't too long ago, they really didn't question if you came in with older people in the smaller city where I came from. And I laugh now that I think about it, because I would get into all the drag shows. They would never ID me. I would be there during the day, at night. I actually got to spend a few different nights in the upstairs quarters. Yes, the upstairs quarters of the bar, to the closest city where I lived. They had a performance space that was attached to an apartment space where they, I don't want to say where they held the girls. I wanted to say that. It's not where they held the girls. It's where the girls lived. So part of their performance stipend was their pay, and they had their living arrangements taken care of. So I love that so much, because literally you could get ready, open your back door, go right on stage, and I said yes to pretty much everything. I remember one. No, listen, I'm not out here trying to tell someone's business. I'm not that person. I'm not also here to tell secrets of the trans community. I'm not here to do that. I'm merely here to share my experience. I remember this individual had they considered being pumped, right? It's like silicone into their hips. And she laid on the floor and she's like, grab that rolling pin. And so I had to literally take the rolling pin and roll out her thigh so it wouldn't settle to be lumpy. It's sort of experiences like that a lot of people wouldn't get to experience. I consider myself fortunate because I got to know right away all the effort and time and energy it takes to be a woman. And oh my gosh, these trans women, I love you all so very much. I want to pass my mic to you and tip my hat to your greatness. I want to continue to offer this spotlight wherever I'm at to your wonderful personalities, beauty, and just remember, I will always remember that it was a trans woman of color, trans people of color, who threw the first brick. They were tired of being harassed. And I learned my advocacy from trans women of color who walk the walk, walk the talk, led. And we don't talk about how it's one thing to be trans, but come out and be trans. And then what does that look like? And what comes with that transition? Some people are like, oh, you know, you're passing. I don't like when people say that. I like when people just love themselves fearlessly in the body that they're in. And if someone says, I'm a woman, then you are a woman. I don't care how masculine you look or feminine you look. I'm here to just oblige that the life that you look through is that of a woman. And I get so tired of people in general who just want to hate on trans people. And sometimes I try to fight the urge to not want to lean into conflict with individuals who don't see people. And one of the arguments that I see online all the time is angry people who want to misgender somebody and be like, "You're a man," and I always find that incredibly offensive. And what that does is you negate the fact that this person is a human and you're just trying to assert verbal violence just because you want to get a rise out of somebody. That's not seeing someone. That's not being a neighbor. That's not being celebratory. That's not like, hey, there's space for everybody. No, that is a skewed, closed view of somebody. I remember early on, I was in a grocery store with my sister, and we were pointing at somebody, and one of my parents snatched me up so quickly and was like, "You don't know someone's story. You love them because they're human. You love them and respect them regardless." And that sort of stuck with me. I loved that moment in my life because I really started to lean into the human factor of people first, and not necessarily all the complications that make us human, because our journeys are so unique. That's why, yeah, you have trans women, the umbrella, but there's other trans individuals too, trans men and non-binary and people who fall somewhere on the spectrum. And this is not a trans exclusion episode at all. This is just to highlight the wonderful brick throwing trans women of color, the Sylvia Riveras and the Monica Helms, and people who have led the trans experience through life, and no matter what, always had to fight to be seen. That's huge for me, because even with someone as much privilege as I have, it's hard for me to feel seen. If it's the way I look, or maybe I don't fit in, or I'm a big old weirdo, nobody likes that. Then nobody likes someone that's confident and someone who stands in their identity and is not afraid to show that. I wish more people met trans people. There's a study out there Trevor Project did. It said 1 in 3 people have never met a trans person. Those 70% of adults would support the children if they came out as trans or non-binary. I mean, what kind of question is that? It's your child. You don't have that much control over your child to be like, "Hey, you be trans, I'm gonna stop loving you." What? That's love with conditions. We don't want that. Unconditional love means I see you, I love you, I respect you, you be you. You also get to choose your path, and I get to support that, however that looks. Oh, it frustrates me so much when people try to choose if they get to love their child or not, depending on how they come out. It's so fascinating to me. We need more people to interact with our trans community, especially trans women, and be open. Just if you come in it with a closed mind, oh my gosh, your mind is so hateful that you couldn't even see the greatness in somebody that you've already decided is an invalid person. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people that are genuinely interested. And I would say that if you're genuinely interested about sex or gender, please use the wonder of Google and explore what that means. If you're confused, there is a world wide web out there that can help you be unconfused. Also, you know, if you are a parent and you're just trying to find resources for your child, go you. If you're a partner who's struggling because your partner is now transitioning and you don't know what to do, go you for loving them. If you are a trans person and you are fighting your government because they have said you are an invalid human, go do it. Just know that I love you and I'm also supporting you along the way. So now comes the time to pass the mic to the wonderful trans women in my life. And I've asked them 5 questions and I wanted to know the real answer. Some of them are very deep, some of them are very short, some of them are very vague. And I want to show you some of those answers. The questions that I asked, I wanted them to be thought-provoking, and I also wanted them to be eye-opening, because a trans person, a trans woman in any state, any city may experience life differently. A trans woman of color will experience life differently than maybe a white trans woman. A trans woman with money versus somebody who maybe doesn't have money. There's all different kinds of variables that influence someone's life that ultimately affects their community, their neighbors. And so these are the statements and responses from people that I have great admiration and value for. The questions. Gaba, what's the questions? I'll tell you. First question is, what is the most genuine statement, comment, question ever asked or said to you? Well, let's dive in, shall we?
Regina Gazelle Wells. I live to educate people. And when a person comes to me and asks me genuinely, why am I like I am? I'd love to just break it down to them, because I actually believe that at birth, my brain developed like a female's. It's been proven that the man's brain developed from one side of the head and the female's brain developed from the other side of the head. And if you're gay, the brain kind of develops half and half. So when the gay person develops, they can be a man, act in a man's role, live a man's life. But when it comes to their sexuality, they can be feminine. And vice versa with females. But with the transsexual, my brain actually developed like a woman's. So emotionally, I feel and think like a woman. And I love breaking that down to people when I get the opportunity. It gives a better insight.
So you like the inquisitiveness then?
Yeah.
Instead of assumption?
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not going to read the question every time, but I would like to hear another respondent on the same question.
After thinking long and hard, because it was hard for me, was probably the same question that each one of my kids asked me: are you going to be happy? When it was time for me to transition. And I asked each one of them, because I wasn't going to do it. If not even one of them said they were going to have problems with it, I wasn't going to transition. I was just going to stay. But they all asked me if I was going to be happy. And I said yes. And all three of them said, then do it. Because that's all they want.
Second question. What was it like being you prior to transitioning? What is it like being you where you live today? Let's hear those responses to our second question.
Trying to fit into it, what I had grown up being told and perceiving people should live, and realizing one day to live my own life instead of conforming to others' beliefs.
And where are you today? What is it like being you where you live today?
Today, so much freaking hatred and going on that I find I have to present one way pretty much in public and kind of conceal the real me just to keep safe from hateful people.
So safety is important where you live.
Yes.
And for you?
Like you said, it was more of like everybody knows that when you're part of the LGBT community and you're trying to transition, the traditional family is supposed to be going to church and teaching them that it's wrong to be that way, which is, in my opinion, it's still judging because they want you to think one way. They don't want you to think, have an open mind. And I've been in churches where that's actually happened. Well, you can't be you here. It's against God's word. We can't have you come to the church, so we're going to ask you to leave. Mm-hmm. So I've been asked to leave churches just for being me, because they don't feel that it's right for me being me. And I'm like, well, that's judging. That's why, even as an ordained minister myself, I have an open mind. I'll talk to anybody, no matter who they are. But the minute they start, being discriminatory or having a problem with me, that's where I have to end the conversation and just leave. Because I can get safety, And so that trying to do that and trying to, because trying to battle who you want to be and then trying to please everybody else to be what you're biologically born as is pretty much a battle, because you have to live one way and then you have to be yourself at night and just, when you're first starting out, because nobody agrees with, in their words, your lifestyle, which is another word I do not like. But people think it's a lifestyle. Whether you're gay, whether you're trans, whether you're bi, it's always a lifestyle. No. We've always been this way. It's just that traditional families don't accept us for who we are, and they will tell you the Bible says it's wrong. Which, like I said, is more judgment and one way of thinking. So, it's good to have an open mind for different things. And, like, another thing I could say is, like, people post themselves on Facebook, like what they look like before and after. I never did that, never have. Simply because, okay, I know what I used to look like. I know what I look like now. For me, if I did that, I would probably be depressed if I posted pictures before and after, because it's like I'm like comparing myself to someone else I used to be, which would, like I said, probably get me depressed. And then, so I don't post pictures up like that. Now, people do that and that's fine for them if that works for them. I just never do it. I bet say what you see in front of you is what is who you see. So I don't talk about what I look like in the past or what I used to do. Live life to your fullest. Don't settle for don't have any regrets when you get to where you can't do things, because don't be sitting there waiting on your deathbed saying, well, I wish I could do that. I should have done this at that time, but I had to do this. Yeah, you got to make money and you got to live. That's just a fact. But make sure you take time out for yourself to do something you normally can't do. Clear your mind, cleanse your spirit, and, take time for yourself and just focus. That's kind of what I've said.
These responses have been so special to hear. Thank you so much. Let's keep this moving right along to the next question. The third question is, what is the most important conversation piece mainstream media, mainstream society should be discussing at their dinner table?
When it comes to trans women, I would say that respect. Not acceptance, but respect. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with, that I don't necessarily believe in, but yet I'm respectful of other people's opinions, beliefs, or needs. And I would like for people to have that conversation on their table. That it's not about accepting the trans community. It's not about accepting everything that comes with it. It's about respecting somebody else's freedom of choice to be whoever they want to be. I think that respect goes a long way, and it should be something that we should be talking about on our family tables at dinner.
I think we have another great response from another individual on this same question. Let's hear it.
In response to question number 3, if I had to give an important conversation piece, it would definitely be the topic of love and acceptance. At the end of the day, regardless of whatever walk of life we come from, we are human beings. And if we all could just learn to accept each other's differences and put aside our own feelings for the good of society, I think we would be better off.
And here we go. On to the next question. 4. If you waved a magical wand and all of society could understand one thing about transgender individuals, what would you want everyone to wake up one morning and know without any further explanation?
I would have people understand that this is not some intricate, well thought out gender presentation 100% of the time. This is not something I am not performing. This is not a stage name or a hobby for me. This is not quote unquote fun. This is being transgender for me simply boils down to the medicine I take, the way I feel, the way I outwardly present myself, yes, but anyone that knows me knows that I'm not sitting there putting on a fashion show. I am not obsessing over makeup for hours. I am not doing quote unquote everything I could do to pass as a quote unquote woman, because I know I already am a woman and I already look at myself that way. Everybody that knows me already looks at me that way. So I would want people to understand that I am not in the business of trying to deceive them. I am not some man dressing up as a drag queen or putting on some sort of show. I am simply the person I am. I am the woman I am. And this is how I choose to express it. I don't owe anybody a bunch of makeup. I don't owe anybody an attempt at passing. I just don't. And I think that the sooner that people could understand and accept that, the better off our entire community would be.
Let's add another voice to the same question.
I'd simply wish that everyone could understand that trans folks are simply trying to live authentically. We just want to be ourselves, just like anybody else. And our gender identity is valid, and we deserve respect, dignity, and equal rights.
What an honor to have these voices represented in this episode. We have one more question. Without further delay, let's get to it. Finally, what's the biggest issue facing trans women where you live?
I believe that one of the greatest issues that we have is, how can I put this? The division that is occurring amongst trans women, us not accepting us and getting up to attack each other, to not understand each other, to have expectations of where certain individuals need to be in their transition, dictating what transitioning is, dictating what a trans woman or a trans man is. And I think that we've forgotten where we came from, and we are so quick to judge one another rather than to support one another. I think that if we were to create more sisterhood, more environments where we can become sisters, where we can fellowship and support one another rather than to tear each other apart, I think that we would move forward more in society. The division that we are facing, it's sad to see, because we already have the external world attacking us. When we start attacking each other, then where are our safe spaces? When I cannot even feel comfortable around other trans women because they have an idea of what a trans woman should be. I think that we crossed that line the minute we decided to be trans, the minute we decided to go against what everyone believes. So to sit here in this community and judge somebody else, it seems a bit hypocritical on my point of view.
And one more thought from another individual.
I think just finding a job, being able to survive, being able to go and apply for a job and be counted like anybody else, by your experience and not by what you look like or who you are, and having to just do sex work because that's the only kind of work you can get, it's pretty hard out there right now when it comes to finding a mainstream job, just to survive. We're supposed to, pay taxes and die and survive, but we can't even do that, So yeah, I think that's just finding a job pretty much is what we're facing right now.
Let's add another voice to the same question.
In response to question number 5, the biggest issue facing trans women in Dayton, Ohio would definitely be access to care. We have Equitas, which does wonders for the LGBT community. However, there are only 2 gender-affirming surgeons within Ohio. One is in Columbus and one is in Cleveland. I personally would like to see more access to surgeons.
We are at the final thought of this episode, and I thought it would be an honor to have Miss Regina Wells Gazelle lead us in a final thought for the children. Regina, any final thoughts for this episode?
You know, I've been clean and sober for 26 years. The first 30 years of my transition, I used. And I used every drug imaginable. And my life was a living hell. Once I found sobriety, I found love, acceptance, and real serenity in my life. One of the things I like to share, especially with my trans community, that drugs and alcohol are not for us. People can use us and our energy against us. And once you realize that you are a higher being individual, that you don't need the drugs and the alcohol to shine. You just need to believe in yourself and love yourself. That way, you can learn to love the world around you, and everything becomes better. Thanks.
How do you do it? How do you love yourself?
How do you love yourself? It takes a lot of work. It took me a lot. I can only speak for me. It took a lot of work. I had to do a lot of therapy. I had to do medications. I had to do my 12 steps. I had to do everything that was required, and it was everything that was required. And I found that it was just as much work for me to get sober and stay sober as it was for me to get loaded and stay loaded. But the results were so much different. My life is so much better. In 26 years, I haven't had a physical altercation. I haven't been to jail. I haven't been raped. I haven't been robbed. I haven't had to worry about money. My life just got so much better. But I remember on my last relapse, my counselor and my case manager both sat with tears in their eyes after I was sober for 9 months and said, "Regina, you have to learn to love yourself." And for the first time in my life at 40 years old, I heard that loud and clear. And that was my goal, was learning to love Regina.
And that has been our episode of Trans Women. Please like, subscribe, and continue to share and support small local artists. Until next episode, I'm Gaba Ghoul!